So, Mike, how long have we been doing this show?
I would like to say 28 weeks, but we did skip a few when we were traveling. It is our 28th episode, though. And to commemorate it, we're going to be talking about 28 days later. Mary, I think you wanted to touch on 28 weeks, which whatever.
No, I don't really want to talk about 28 weeks because I don't like it. But it is our 28th show to a degree, and it's our... we're doing an episode on 28 days later, and then to culminate everything else, it's our first episode in video.
Yeah, so obviously if you're listening on iTunes or wherever else you might catch us, this is not going to be any different. But if you're on YouTube or GameSpot or wherever we post this, this is my dumb mug.
There we go. I was like, why are you holding that mug?
You get to see it now, yeah. Well, I also need coffee. I'm tired. But yeah, so I'm Mike Mahardy. I've been hosting this for 27 episodes. That's Mary over there. She's going to be switching this live. So she might sound a little awkward today while she figures out this thing.
I also might switch a few on accident to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Which I've already done. Hey, Peter.
That's Peter Brown. You've heard his sonorous voice plenty of times by now if you've been a fan of the podcast.
Hi.
Yeah. That's
and a
just
fan of GameSpot.
And a fan of GameSpot. I don't know like where our main audience is coming from. Justin's the person who would know that. You're all analytical and whatnot.
No, nobody knows me.
That's Justin Haywald. Yeah, I'm pumped to talk about this. Justin, I think like 28 Days Later, you said is your favorite horror movie or one of them?
It's definitely in my top 3 best. I think it is one of the best horror films of all time.
Yeah.
And like that, the beginning, like is so iconic. Like that beginning just always stands out. I can watch that on an endless loop. Like it's so... It's not even scary. It's just that mood that it sets up is so perfect for the rest of the film.
It's pretty bleak.
Yeah, and it really does a good job of, as the main character is being introduced to things, introducing you as well. And like the same questions he has, you have. And super evocative as well, like the composition of a lot of those shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really good.
The London, it's like sun-drenched when he wakes up, but it's also a lot of shadow to it. Is that where The Walking Dead got the idea for... what's his name? The main character to wake up from a coma and the world has gone to shit?
The official answer is yes.
Robert Kirkland told you?
I
don't watch The Walking Dead anymore.
But I can see that as an idea that somebody would have in a vacuum, or just not even realize, like, oh yeah, I saw that in this movie, and then it flavors the way that The Walking Dead was created. But it's a good idea. Like that is a way that you would survive a zombie apocalypse potentially.
I like the little world building they do too. Like when he goes up to the hospital door, the key has been slid under the door. So you imagine maybe like a nurse or one of his family members that was visiting, like the parents, he goes, and he finds that they had killed themselves, just took sleeping pills with wine in their home in Deptford, actually, whereas where I stayed when I went to London, which is really weird because any other time I'd watched that movie, it didn't mean anything that I visited London lately. So I was like, oh shit, I know where Deptford is. It was really cool. But yeah, you're like, oh, maybe one of his parents just kind of slid the key under the door in the hopes that maybe he would wake up, or a nurse or a doctor or someone. And then when he goes downstairs in the hospital in the lobby, all the payphones are swinging from their cords. And you're like, what happened? And then like he kind of picks them up and listens and just throws them. So you're like, oh, someone was either in a hurry to check them or just like didn't care and like, I don't know, painted a pretty cool like what happened when he was sleeping without actually outright telling you. Which is a really good job of setting that up without too much exposition.
They also start setting up like right from those opening shots that you're dealing with protagonists that know what they're doing, which is something that didn't always happen in zombie films of that era. This zombie film, which was released in America in 2003, did a lot of things differently than most zombie films. The most iconic was the gimmick that they're fast, and they're not zombies, they're infected, right? This is about a viral infection that's through the blood and saliva. So that was like their first premise, right? Zombies fast, they're fast and they're going to come after you. But the second one that they did that's very, very unique is because it's set 28 days later, all the stupid people are dead and you are not dealing with someone who's crying or freaking out or doesn't know what to do. All those people have died. And you're dealing with 4 main protagonists that can function in this world. And that's really unique. So right from the get-go in this hospital, he is thirsty. He's been, I don't know what he's been getting for the last month, but nothing substantial. And he sees a vending machine and he grabs some soda and he chugs it. And not only does he do that, but he gets a plastic bag and he fills it with 3 more cans, because he might want them later. So it's kind of like setting the tone. And this is without any words yet, by the way, besides him saying like, hello, that to a degree, you are as confused as he is. You're on this journey with him and that he's not an idiot. And all those things are just such a wonderful exposition to this.
But he's
Yeah.
also been passed out, so you get to discover the world at the same time that he does. That every idea that he gets about what's going on, or every explanation that has to be made, it feels logical because he's also been out of it for 28 days.
Yeah, and that is Cillian Murphy, which is super weird because I just finished season 2 of Peaky Blinders on Netflix. Do you guys watch that?
Mm-mm.
I mean, he's been like Scarecrow from the Nolan trilogy of Batman. He did Inception. He was the one they were in his dream.
Mhm.
So it's weird to see him really young here. This was released in America 13 years ago. I forget what the actual release date.
This is his breakout role. I have a good tidbit about this. That role, his name is Jim, was originally offered to Ewan McGregor, and Ewan turned it down. And then it was offered to Ryan Gosling, and they had a scheduling conflict. Thus, Cillian Murphy stepped in basically his first it's like a larger role, and I think it's pretty much started his career in many ways.
It's weird to see Danny Boyle potentially jump to an American actor after not getting Ewan McGregor.
Yeah. I was gonna say Ryan Gosling, when I like that young, the last thing I remember him was he was the cornerback in Remember the Titans. That's the only whenever people look at Ryan Gosling now and they look back and remember the Titans, like holy shit, that's Ryan Gosling, just like I don't know, 18 or whatever he was. But then Selena, who's the character who her character arc is actually a little more interesting to me than most of them. She just starts off as that hardened survivor, which you don't. She played Moneypenny in the newer the Daniel Craig James Bonds, but the way they show you how much of a survivor she is when the guy you first meet her with gets bit in Jim's home in Deptford, and then she immediately starts hacking him with a machete. And you kind of like know, I mean, if that's not the first zombie movie I've seen, but it was earlier on in those, and that kind of just pragmatic approach to killing the one person you've been friends with for 4 weeks now is really unsettling. And she just goes for it because he gets bit on the arm and he's like, oh shit.
Well, it goes back to what Mary was saying, right? Like everyone is super smart, but like that doesn't mean they're necessarily good.
Yeah.
There are a lot of evil people running different shows in this world.
Well, that's what the army commander later on says to Jim. He's like, how many people have you killed? He's like,
right.
How do you know I've killed someone? He's like, if you're still alive, you must have killed somebody. Yeah. And Frank is the father who they introduce him pretty cool. Selena's almost running away from Jim up those apartment stairs when she gets up to where the guy who played Mad Eye Moody in Harry Potter, I forget the actor's name, but he is like, he's got a riot shield and outfit, and you could tell like they are used to this. His daughter's in the house, and he's like, go down to like 5B or whatever the apartment is, and he is very like a jovial guy for the circumstances they find themselves in. And his, like, to jump a little bit in the timeline, his death scene is brutal. Like,
well, let's slow down. I think like what's cool about like those characters is how you're right. Like they all have different wants and needs, and they're all displayed really clearly in this film. So like Jim is trying to figure out what's going on, and he's the best to be associated with us, the watcher, right? Like he's how we perceive this film is through his eyes. Selena is like this badass who I just think is just an incredible character, right? She's hardened. I believe the director like had a backstory for her where she like watched her parents die, and like that's why she's such a cold bitch. But it works really well, and none of that's stated. It's just implied because she's so aggressive. Like when she leaves him in that famous scene where they're like running up the stairs, and he's calling out to her like, "Wait for me," and she doesn't because she doesn't give a shit about anyone. She can't afford to. She knows they'll get them killed. And then Frank's motivation is to protect his daughter, Hannah. They show in that opening scene in their apartment, there's a family photo of Frank, Hannah, and the mom. They do not discuss the mom ever. So it is just implied that she dies. And Frank knows that to protect Hannah, he needs help, which is why he puts the lights on his place in the first place to get more people to his place to help, because he knows he can't do it on his own.
Yeah, well, Frank's little beauties are always going to be very important.
Are you doing It's Always Sunny reference right now? It's just out of nowhere. Yeah, there's been a few on this show so far, but no. Do they ever outright say that it was the disease that killed mom, or could she have potentially been dead beforehand?
I figured they just got divorced.
They don't bring it up.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't love each other.
You guys are reading way too much into this.
No, I like that, but you don't know. Like that's why I like this movie. It doesn't bother telling you every detail. But then I don't know. Like I really like how probably my favorite scene in the movie is when they go to the grocery store, and it's like the one good moment they have. And it's weird because I've had that fantasy, kind of getting locked in like a mall or a grocery store overnight,
You're like really
having
stoned.
having free reign to go whatever, like do whatever you want. Obviously, they're confined to like the canned goods, but I would just destroy like Little Debbie's or something.
You know, we have there used to be game shows. I don't know if they still have them, but like Supermarket Sweep,
Yeah.
where you just run through a
Did
supermarket.
you guys remember that Toys R Us thing or on Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
Where once a year a kid would win like 10 minutes in a Toys R Us in a
yeah.
shopping cart, and it was whatever he could get.
Mm-hmm.
They always went
Ah,
for the
so
dumbest
cool.
crap. He's like, I want like 15 baseball mitts. Like, moron.
What would you have gotten, Peter? What
Video
was-
games, come on.
Yeah.
15 Nintendos.
Well,
I
'cause
would've
at
gotten-
at Toys R Us, you had to get paper slips, so all you gotta do is
Fuck yeah. You could just put those in like a little notebook and then grab one of the, you know that Toys R Us always have the bicycle aisles?
Yeah.
Get one of those bicycles with the cart behind it.
Yeah.
And then don't even worry about a shopping cart. Load that shit up and then you could fly around the place. It permitted there aren't zombies knocking at the door to bring us back.
I think like something that that scene did though that is really smart is a lot of these types of movies. Again, this is something that kind of set the precedent ahead now. Was that it would just be like something scary happens, then you get to relax for a second. Something scary happens, you get to relax for a second. But this movie doesn't just let you relax; it actually lets you start to enjoy. So that scene isn't just calming; it's enjoyable. Like you kind of laugh. There's
Cathartic.
yeah, there's like a scene where Frank is explaining why there's like a really good scotch to Jim, and he's just like, it's got like a harsh start, and then it's like a mellow aftertaste. It's got a burn. It's got a fire, but it doesn't burn.
Yeah,
and
it's got
like,
the fire without the burn or
and,
something, yeah.
Jim just turns around and walks away because he couldn't give a shit. And it's just like a really good dynamic. Like there's comedy. There's like another scene where they're enjoying the food and like having a picnic. And then there's like another scene too. It's actually right before that where they see a pack of wild horses, totally free and having a good time. And it's like that's not just a break. Like you've just made that scene really lovely, and that was pretty new for a film to do something like that, to be cinematically beautiful in between all that gore.
There are a lot of good details, and then going back to the mom, when they first get there, he's like, do we have anything to offer our guests? And she's like, we have mom's creme de menthe. It's on the top shelf or
That's
something. He's
right.
like, and then he pauses for a little bit. He's like, oh, I wish we had something better, but also like, yeah, what happened to mom? Why the fuck did she like creme de menthe?
She was addicted to creme de menthe. That's all that happened.
She just drank her
She
liver
OD'd
away
on
with
menthe.
creme de menthe. Yeah, there was. You mentioned Mary, you wrote the run of show today. You said there's a tidbit about girls with the empty shots of London. Was that? Do you remember why you wrote that?
I found like some cool facts about it. So this used to be as well as Justin. This used to be my favorite. I think it still is to some degree like my favorite zombie-esque flick.
It's something supplanted.
Yeah, when I had the DVD, I watched all the DVD with commentary and all the behind the scenes. And there's a lot of good facts in there and an alternate ending, which I
There's a
Yeah, we have
couple
to
on
look
there,
at the
right?
Yeah.
alternate
Yeah.
endings after
I
this.
definitely want to talk about that. But one of the cool facts was you remember like there's all these iconic scenes where they show completely empty famous parts of London that should never be empty, including some like really famous highways that are jam packed and always really full.
The bridge he first walks over is the Tower of London stop on
Yeah.
the underground. I've been to London.
That's
so
so
worldly.
cool, Mike.
Wow.
Wait,
I'm just
let's.
kidding. I'm gonna keep driving that home. No, I'm just kidding.
He's been places.
London was established in 1995.
By George Bush.
That guy went over there and said, "Hear me, this is London."
They recorded those at 4 a.m, and they got attractive women to stand where they were holding the traffic to make people less angry, so they could get a little bit more time out of it. And
Makes sense.
they could only do it for a max of an hour.
Yeah.
And even that was pushing it. And they did it for like 30 seconds of usable footage. It was like very impossible, very lucky shots.
Yeah.
And they used the ladies to get them.
And they didn't tell the London Police Department they were gonna blow up a gas station.
No, they didn't. Yeah, that was a surprise.
That's sick.
Hey, surprise.
Different times.
I think it was inadvertent. So they didn't do it because they didn't think they could get away with it.
Yeah, but the director was like, nice.
Yeah, but like, let's just
Danny
not do
Boyle's
it.
just like fucking standing there with the wreckage behind him and just like middle finger to the police
Love
station.
the smell of gas in the morning.
Yeah.
There was a firefight.
Drops to his knees. What if that happened nowadays? That'd be just chaos. Anyway.
Twitter would go nuts.
Yeah, there's
Twitter would be beefing with that.
There's
gas
some
station.
crazy visual scenes in this entire film, but like that's what made it so visually unique at its time. And I think another one of those really famous visual scenes was the tunnel. This is where they get a car and they decide, as the four protagonists, are gonna like kind of go and seek out this base because they find an audio thing that's saying that they found a cure.
It's like Manchester or something.
Yeah, and they go into this tunnel and they drive over all these cars, and of course they get a flat because it's crazy.
Sorry to interrupt. That's also another good moment when they're driving over the cars because they all like start laughing. It was like a thrill. It was like, that was kind of one of those brief moments where they were human again.
Yeah, you're totally right. And after they get the flat, and I think we all anticipate like dun dun dun, but it's such a cool way and they do it. They say they're like, "What's that noise?" And then just like heaps of rats come through. And then when they realize the rats are running from the infected, which is a very interesting concept, you can see all the shadows of the infected running through the tunnels. It's like a very iconic scene where you're just like seeing all these shadows of like crazy people run, and they're sprinting.
Well, it's immediate. It's also the thing that struck me. I was wondering if the rats were infected because they're like swarming over Hannah, who's under the car, like trying to, I guess, like get the jack under the car so they could change the tire, and then the rats start swarming over her face. I was like, shit, I hope they're not infected.
Yeah, it's another good example though of how they don't freak out because they're smart and they're survivors. So you're not seeing the girl who you'd think the young girl would absolutely lose it and like be crying in a corner. She's changing a tire while the other three lift the car because they don't have time to like jack it up. So they're just doing everything, and everybody's doing their part. And even though they're freaked out and I'm sure they're like screaming inside, everybody does their job because they're not stupid. And that's why this movie's awesome.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the real horror sets in. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much when you realize what the soldiers' intentions are with Selena and Hannah. The commander gives that speech to Jim. He's essentially giving me a choice. He's like, you can either die or get in prison, or just like let us try to start repopulating. Because they said like, we're pretty much waiting to die. What are we going to do? Like, we've tried exploring the area as well. We know there's no one left. We are just kind of waiting out our extinction. And then two women show up, one who's 15 or something.
She's young.
Teenager. And then Selena and everything. And you start to realize they're like, oh, they're planning on raping them to repopulate, or just to have sexual relations again when they never thought they would. And then Jim, of course, like gets thrown in jail with that one cop who's also protesting it. And it's the scene where they're all pointing guns at him and they start to like back him into that corner. You're like, what is he going? Why is he doing that? You're like, oh shit, he's standing up to them because that's what they're planning on. That was a pretty dark moment when you start to realize what's going on.
That entire sequence of the army is pretty cool because it seems plausible. It seems plausible that a group of individuals alone for 28 days would establish a hierarchy, which they already have because it's an army, and that they start to get depressed. And the army guy, when he's making this like pretty wild speech, after things start to get a little shaky, right, with the ladies and the men, and the army guy is basically saying, I'll tell you what I see. I see people killing people. And that's what I've always seen. And that's a really important statement that he makes, because what he's saying is this isn't a moment where all of a sudden we're infected and we're dealing with the infection. He's saying people have always killed people. Now we're just, nothing has changed in the state of humanity. Now we're just in control now. And it's just like fucked thing to say.
That's the root of all good zombie movies, that it's not about necessarily the infected. It's not about the horror of fighting things that can't die. It's the horror of how it reveals real human nature and who we are on the inside.
Yeah, the zombies are more of almost like a setting than an actual character in it. And that shows, because that's Cillian Murphy's character arc. He eventually becomes a monster himself, to the point where Selena, when it's dark in the room after he kills the one who's got like captured her, he kills him, and then she looks at him. She thinks he's infected. She's about to like hack him again with a machete, but she stops when she sees his eyes are normal, his face is normal.
He has dreamy eyes.
Cillian Murphy's eyes are nice.
He takes a turn for the worse. I mean, when they take him to kill him, so they take him and the other army guy. I think he was a sergeant. I don't know if he even had a name, honestly. And Sarge, old Sarge. And they're getting really bad. Like the army guys are basically like, oh, I'm going to stab him instead of shooting him, because they're just like mentally out of it. And that gives Jim, I'll just call him his character's name, the ability to escape. That's kind of where he snaps. And what's really cool about it is that's the twist as well. That's the what a twist moment. He's laying on his back and he looks up in the trees and he sees a plane. And that's like that moment where you realize that the world has not stopped turning. Everyone is fine. The world is going to continue. We're not out of women yet. We've quarantined the area. And those guys went fucking nuts. They went nuts. And that's how they dealt with it, was that hierarchy, that army-based hierarchy. So that's where Jim like loses it. And he does something pretty sneaky. He like turns on the alarms and starts trying to take them out one by one. It's a really, really, really good scene. And it's all done in the rain. It's beautiful.
Yeah, they his name's Major Henry West is the leader, and he shows Jim that the undead they have chained up at one point. I forget the undead's name, but it's pretty weird because they're trying to figure that out. That's like their overarching plan, is figure out how long it takes to starve all the infected, but also lure with these radio signals or whatever it was, like female survivors.
Yeah, it's pretty smart.
To the mansion, the manor, wherever they are. I want to talk about Frank's death scene now, because
Poor Frank.
it's so fucked up, because the whole time they're avoiding the infected and these running zombies, but you forget that it can just be transmitted by the blood or the saliva. And he looks up because he's shaking the fence to get the bird to fly away, and then the blood drops down. The shot is like in the blood drop and drops into his eye. And it takes him like a few seconds to realize that screwed him over. And then, of course, like Hannah has to watch her dad turn right in front of her. And you wonder if that is the first time she's seen that. But it seems like it was. But I haven't watched my dad turn into a zombie or an infected or rager.
No?
But it's a messed up scene, and it's pretty awful. You just see like someone's humanity slip away, and it was pretty sad.
It happens so quickly too. They say it's a 15-second transition, so it's like as soon as it happens, you have to kill them. And he's still halfway there, and he's saying, I think the last thing he says is, "I love you very much," and
Then he starts raging.
He just starts kind of freaking out, and I don't know. I mean, it's a really quick scene, but I think you could start to get choked up right before the army shoots him a bunch in his chest.
Yeah, he gets
Just
rocked.
a shock.
And then
he's the sweetheart in the movie, right? Like he's the real nice guy.
Yeah, he was the comedic relief. He was the one that kind of brought us back.
Yeah, that's what the best zombie movies or stories do, is show like how it changes characters. And obviously Cillian becomes a monster himself at one point, but he becomes a survivor essentially. But Selena becomes a little softer because she actually has people to care about between Jim and Hannah. But then I forget that like Hannah, she gives her a ton of like Vicodin or something before they think they're gonna get raped. So then like Hannah herself is just calling out all the soldiers.
Yeah, she's like, "You're all gonna die."
Yeah, and then Cillian just climbs up on top of the fence covered in blood with his shirt off in the rain. You're like, what is he doing?
He's gone full primal at this point, and he's basically like got his eyes open, and he's like in the window, like.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And then like the infected start slowly spreading throughout the mansion and taking everybody out. And I like how that culminates, that whole thing. What were the alternate endings besides the one where they just like they put the help sign, they've been sewing it in the remote like London countryside, and then the plane flies overhead?
Right. There's one where like it just like maintains that it's hell and the lead character died.
In the hospital or whatever?
Yeah. That he died. And then that's a really weird one. And I think I also, when we're talking about setting the precedent of this film, it's like one of the very few that have a positive ending, but it earned it. It's not positive as a twist or like to shake it up. It like deserved to have a positive ending. They did lose one character, but it wasn't because he was stupid and like went off on his own. It was just a mistake. It was an honest mistake that he like got something in his eye. And the other three, who are hardworking and killed anyone that got in their way, survived. And they kind of deserved to survive. So that was pretty cool to watch that. And then in addition to that alternate ending when he died, there's also one that never even got shot. It was scripted and storyboarded, where they kept the father, Frank, and they do a full blood transfusion with a regular person to make him human again.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, that doesn't make that would actually be impossible for us to literally replace every drop of blood in his body with a new person's blood."
Wouldn't stop me from trying.
It's really stupid, and I think that's why they didn't shoot it. But it's cool that it got that far, and there's storyboards with the actors and everything, kind of going through the motions in case they end up going that direction, which is pretty wild. So obviously they thought of options.
Yeah, and it's going through those three main beats, both one where the hero doesn't die, but it's still kind of a happy ending, and one where it's no, everything's shitty. The main guy dies, and it doesn't seem like anything's gonna ever be good again.
Did you watch The Mist yet?
No, still haven't.
Because speaking of horrible endings, well, good endings, but like just abysmal. Good endings, but like really dark and dreary
I mean,
endings.
I think almost every horror movie now ends up really bad. Like it's about how you end up dying, right? Like you look at things like The Walking Dead. It's like about how everyone dies. It's not meant for survival. It's meant to show people eventually dying. And this
on
was
a long enough timeline.
Yeah, on a long enough timeline, you're all going. But this movie was always meant to have an end. From the very beginning, it sets the precedent that these people are infected and they're not eating brains here. So they're going to starve to death.
Come on.
Yeah. And within a very short movie, it shows a bunch of the infected starving. It shows them starving to death. So it's showing you that this was meant to end. That's a part of the beauty of this. Much like many things, it's not meant to have sequels, which is why it shouldn't have had a sequel. And that sequel sucks.
28 weeks later.
It's bad.
You watched it recently. Didn't you watch that instead of 28 Days because you knew 28 Days well enough?
I know 28 Days really well, so I thought I'd watch 28 Weeks Later to get refreshed. And that movie does not hold water. It doesn't hold shit. It sucks.
I saw it once when I was
Least of all water.
17.
the most abysmal of waters.
How do you remember the age? You always have an anecdote for a.
I remember
I think
where
he
I
makes
was.
them up.
No, I was in
I
Annapolis.
think he does too.
I was in Annapolis, Maryland with my friend Tanner.
You weren't in London?
I was reading
No.
James Joyce.
It was 4:32 in
I was-
Annapolis, Maryland.
I was on page 475.
It was second breakfast whence I saw that. No, it was I was watching in Maryland. I remember I was going to watch like my friends.
What were you wearing that day?
Probably a
What he's
lacrosse
wearing right
penny,
Probably.
croquis,
Okay.
just broing out. And I remember watching it. I remember the beginning most of all. I remember the chopper scene when they get in a chopper and the pilot like inverts his bird, so to speak, not in a
Doesn't make
sexual
any
way.
sense.
And then yeah, he starts spinning like
You know, we
yelling
would
at
say that in a sexual way, but like you would never put the blades down like that. That would destroy your helicopter. That is stupid. I think that's actually the moment where I was like, oh wait, this is a bad film, because they made a lot of mistakes, right? Like
Yes.
there's just like simple things. You just don't feel that way when you watch 28 Days Later. Everything felt plausible. Everything was like, yeah, that is probably what would happen, right? They would quarantine the area. They would vacate the area.
Didn't he wake up butt naked in that bed?
Oh yeah, literally,
Oh,
he was
sure
hanging
did.
dong.
Dude
Okay, so
hangs dong.
That's
Closed set,
You want to talk about things that are
motherfucker.
unbelievable? What hospital just has patients lying around completely
weenies?
naked?
in 28 Days Later.
Yeah. Doesn't he wake up just completely naked?
Yeah, he's naked.
Yeah,
on
but he
bed.
could have had a gown on.
And where'd the gown go, Mike?
tossing and turning in his sleep, and he it gets hot, and you rip it off in your sleep.
Yeah,
and-
maybe
When
he
you're, like,
maybe
in a
inverted his
coma or
bird
whatever?
and the gown got thrown off.
You just don't know why.
a nurse wanted to get a last look, like a really nice dog.
Just
Oh,
one more
last
peen
look.
before I go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful dog. And then runs out the door, throws the keys on the floor. That's how that happened.
I'll never let go.
This is my last hurrah.
Cillian Murphy, I hope you're not listening.
No, I mean there's a lot of things
Mike
that when
respects
you
your
see
dog.
them they're
Or watching.
crazy, but they're plausible. After he goes out of the hospital, he goes to a church, and there's just a mass amount of dead people in that church, and everybody else is vacated. So why is there a bunch of dead people in a church? Well, it's because a bunch of religious people were like, shit, the world is ending, and they all committed mass suicide. That seems freaking possible. It seems completely like something that would actually happen in such an incident. Whereas in 28 weeks later, sorry to bring this crap up again, but they reestablished society. In case anyone who hasn't seen this atrocity, they reestablished society. So they vacate it, but then they're like, cool, we've fixed it. There's no infected. We're bringing them back in with the army, right? And they have everybody in like a nice contained quarantined area. They've thought everything through. There's guys patrolling everything. They're taking this shit seriously, and they don't want to get an infection again.
Shit, I just remembered the scene with Jeremy Renner sniping.
All right. Yes. So that's another scene. But let me finish this tale here, where when they get the very first infected, the very first infection happens. They're like, crap, this is happening. We need to isolate it. Do you know what they do? Do you remember what they do? They put every person in one room and lock the doors and turn out the lights.
That's what you did.
Quarantine.
Everyone hide.
We're playing quarantine.
That's not what you do when you have an infection. Really? Is it?
You want to make sure that if it
put
breaks
some
out,
gauze
that
on it.
everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And then and then the sniper scene sucks too.
Can I go back to the church?
Yeah,
So all the people in the church end up dead because they poison themselves.
that's what I think.
Sure, okay. But not the priest.
That's right.
What a dick.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's all unsaid, right?
Yeah.
He's infected, which means
This is religion.
in theory, he was like, everyone drink this Kool-Aid. And then he sat amongst them and was like, just kidding, I'm going to totally live. He didn't take the Kool-Aid at the last minute.
And one last round for donations, if you don't mind. I mean, I'm going to kill myself, but,
I'm totally drinking it.
That's for the church.
Yum, yum, yum.
Get someone to wrap the bodies. Maybe he had good intentions.
It's like littered with possibilities that are untold in that entire thing. I'm glad you brought up that priest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's also creepy as hell when he comes in and says hello in the church, and the two that are alive, the infected, like, just look up at him really quick. Oh, that's creepy as shit, that shot.
But they're not eating anyone, right? Like, it's also establishing that this isn't one of those Edie type zombie films.
It's rage.
Those people are just angry and everyone else is dead. Why?
And Cillian Murphy swings his bag of groceries at the priest and says sorry right after. As the priest is crawling toward him.
My cans.
Yeah.
My sody pops.
Canned goods survive apocalypse. Sorry.
Yeah, go to the, do you remember the sniper scene then in 28 Weeks?
Kind of, yeah. I do now. And you were just saying you hate Jeremy Renner yesterday.
Yeah, I really don't like looking at that guy.
I've heard he's a real dick.
What?
Like in real life, that he's supposed to be a real asshole.
How do you know something like that?
It's stories of people on the Avengers.
There's a thing called the internet where people tell things to other people.
You can't believe those things.
Yeah, I hear Peter's a real dick too. This
Well,
podcast,
There's a
That's
lot
the
of truth
truth.
to that.
I hear a lot of stories on this podcast about him just being a real shit.
Shit lord.
A shitbird. Invert his
Invert
shitbird.
shitbird.
Wait, why'd you want to go back to the sniper scene? Is there something specific, or you just want to harp on it?
It's just another bad scene.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember the opening. The dad is the guy who played the villain in James Bond: The World Is Not Enough, with the bullet in his head, who survived most of the movie but knows he's going to die, so he
Nice.
just becomes this dastardly villain. That's it. I remember the opening, and it's along this country river, and he's got two kids with him in a
The
rowboat.
opening is
When were
good.
you there, Mike? When did you visit that river?
I think I was about 25. No, I would have been 24 at this point.
All right.
No, I don't know.
It's gone too far.
We've gone too far. And with my age jokes.
To be fair, I actually do think the opening scene is really, really well done.
yeah, 'cause
but
he
it's
just-
practically separate from the rest of the film.
Doesn't he just bail on his kids?
He leaves his wife.
So they just roll credits after the opening scene and
It's-
just leave it like that?
I think when they
That'd
marketed
be a sick
it,
short story.
they showed that as the marketing for the film
I'm curious.
with the intention. Yeah, like you didn't know. I thought it was a one-off piece. And it was really good as that one-off piece. Like, it's so good. They're like eating dinner, and then like there's a kid at the front door, and they're like, "What? Should we let him in?" And the woman is like, "Of course, you have to let him in. It's a child.
You always let children
You
into
always
your
let
home.
the children in." And so that works out. But then all the zombies come in, and they just they just start getting taken out one by one, and it's pretty brutal. Especially, and this is this juxtaposition of happy din time, which is what I call dinner, and. Crazy zombs are like coming through the door and you don't know what to do about it.
That's what I call dinner.
Zom
time.
Zom time. So they go upstairs and the mom is trying to get the new child, the one that's actually totally screwed them over by even being there. And
Fuck that kid.
the dad is like, "We have to go." And she's like, "We can't leave him." So she goes to get the kid. Zombs come through the door. And the dude looks at her and she goes, I can't remember his name, but she's like, "My husband name."
As you say.
And he looks at her and he just jets out the door. And as he runs away, he looks to the window and she's against the window like this. And then she gets like
Of course
sucked
she
away.
is.
I don't remember. Like, I know I saw it, and I remember
It's
these
a
little moments, but it's
Grim scene.
It's really good. And it's only, I want to say like,
3 minutes.
it's like 5 minutes. So it's totally worth seeing. And then you should just like be like, cool, that was a sweet sequel.
Smash your VCR.
That
Did you
was
see
great.
The prequel?
There was a prequel?
Yeah,
28 days before?
28 days later.
with Sandra Bullock.
Oh, God damn it.
Wait, did I hear you saying they're gonna 28 months later was in pre-production at some point?
There was talk of it, but I don't know where it ended up going.
What if you did 28 years later and everything's fine? It's a romantic comedy, has nothing to do with the original movies. Remember
let
that
it
time?
die.
Remember that like dozen or so years ago?
It's like in a history book, and they're just talking about it for a brief moment. Yeah.
I'm curious. You said something earlier, and I think Justin asked you, did 28 Days Later get supplanted by something else in terms of zombie movies for you? Or did you just...
Oh, did something like eventually become my favorite?
Yeah, it sounded like you said it used to be your favorite.
I
Like World War Z?
think yeah, that's the new one. I couldn't even remember who the lead actor was in it.
BP.
I think I thought it
And what
was
was it?
Bradley
Brad Pitt.
Pooper.
Bradley Pooper,
Brad Pooper.
Oh, sorry, Brad Pitt. Sorry.
my favorite actor.
Brad Pooper and
I don't
Angelina
know why.
Boley.
Bowley.
God damn.
This is going well. Yeah, I would have to say, and this is a huge switch from it, but one of my favorite zombies of all time. This is another really heavy twist, and I don't know if a lot of people even consider it a zombie film, but I would call it a part zombie film is
Die
Slither.
Hard. Oh,
Damn it.
Did you say Dogwood?
I said Die Hard.
Die Hard. Slither.
fuck yeah.
Slither's really good. It combines humor. It's really witty. It's got really good characters, and it does have zombies in it, but it's also sci-fi. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I really, really like it. Everyone should watch it. But 28 Days Later is still my favorite in terms of just gorgeous, cinematic, wonderfully done, beautifully directed, good characters. Damn, I really like Selena. She's like, guys, you know how hard it is to find good lead characters in these? We did a zombie episode before, and half the girls just freak out. They just can't function.
Yeah.
So
Survivors.
Which is so different
Survivors
from
Gonna
reality.
Survive.
Like if this happened in our office, guys would be like, I think Mary would be fine.
No,
I think guys would be freaking out.
I would take
Mike wouldn't
Mary
even
out
have
right
to
away.
get bitten before I just macheted him to death. That would
Finally,
kill
the
him.
slightest hint of a zombie outbreak, Mary's gonna hack my neck apart. Oh shit! Sorry, it was
You
just
guys, I think he's infected.
someone coughed.
I just need to have an
sneezed.
excuse to murder all of you.
Someone's gonna sneeze and be like, "Oh shit!" and look over Mary sprinting full bore at me.
What are you guys talking about? I can kill all of you.
We talked about that.
Most of
We
it.
talk about this probably like every few episodes. Who would survive a zombie apocalypse out of the GameSpot staff?
That's right. And
Nick
what we would
Margarita.
do,
Nick Margarito
He would
would
just
be
mull
a
his way underground.
Savage. He was almost gonna come on this episode, but he forgot to watch the movie.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Just know the
Goddamn
movie.
punk.
Anyway, but that's like probably a good overall of 28 Days Later.
Yeah,
One
Yeah.
of the greatest. One of the greatest of all time.
It was-
Of all time.
it was a good movie to commemorate our 28th episode. I don't know if you know that. That's why we did it. I said it at the beginning of the episode, but I don't think you were listening at that point.
So are you going to do that on the 30th episode, that 30 Days of Night or whatever the hell that movie is?
Yeah. No. We're gonna do what other numbered horror movies are
Have you
there?
ever seen
I've seen
30
it.
Days a Night?
Is that Josh
No.
Hartnett?
No, I'm
in
sure it's really
Alaska?
bad.
It's not that
It's
bad.
Josh Hartnett, right? In Alaska
It's not great,
with vampires.
but because it's based on a graphic novel of the same name, it's quite good.
it would be so easy for us each week to talk about The Walking Dead, but I refuse. I don't like that show.
Wow.
is
You're
because you're
talking about
roommate.
it right now for
I'm-
some reason.
I guess no publicity is bad publicity. Except I hate that show.
Is it because you hate the show or because you hate your roommate who
I hate
loves
my,
the show?
Oh man,
Wow. Just got real.
I don't like my roommate who I such. I'm just kidding.
Um,
I don't think he listens to this podcast.
this is on video, so I mean,
You're talking about Jake Decker, right?
yeah. Wait, when did you start hating it? I dropped off. but-
Episode 2.
No, it's season 3, midway through season 3. It's not that I hate it. It's just like the creators have specifically expressed the fact that like we want this to keep going forever. That's
Right.
the point. Like, okay,
So we're going to draw it out.
yeah, I'm gonna like this new dude. Everybody's freaking out about. I saw an advertisement on the subway the other day. It said it showed Negan, the villain, and it said he's like, we're just getting started. And then someone tweeted it said, dude, you're on season 7.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
not just getting started.
It's a
I
soap
hope not.
opera. It's a soap opera.
It is. And I think there is, again, like that is something to be said about something that's meant to end and how that can make a piece so much more beautiful. The idea that they don't have an end in sight, it does not feel good.
Let me use
Does
my
not sit right
imagination
with me.
as far as what's going to happen later on
Go on.
or what happened first. I'm not going to tell you what happens in my imagination. I'm just saying I would love it if the creators would allow me to use it instead of just telling me what's going to happen every step of the way.
Just write down your thoughts and send it to them.
In a bottle with a cork in it.
I read the comics for a really long time, and I stopped a few years ago, a little bit after the point where they're at now in the show. It was just like that
So
same
spoil
idea.
things, please.
It's just where it never ends. You would just have characters, and it feels like you're going through really similar situations.
So it's like Westworld, is what you're saying.
What? Westworld's in episode 4.
No, God damn it. Have you watched it?
Oh, you mean they're living the same day?
Yes.
That's what's worse than that.
What's the movie with Bill Murray and the zombies and that he relives the same day?
Ghostbusters.
That's what it was. Oh, we should talk about Zombieland. I love that movie.
I do not like Zombieland.
Mary's giving us the wrap it up single, so maybe
What were you
it's Signal.
talking about?
So maybe that's. Oh, speaking of, I just had a weird tangent with The Office, and I forgot what it was.
Here comes another tangent.
No,
Yeah.
I'm done.
now you. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
you can-
Justin's
all right.
leaving.
Fortunately, that is all the time we have today. Well, it's not, but I'm gonna make it. I'm not gonna let it just keep going like The Walking Dead because then this shit happens. I'm just kidding.
Let's make it good and end it on a good note.
That was Dead Air. See you next week. No, email deadair@gamespot.com as always. Give us some suggestions. We're gonna, like keep doing these on video from here on out. Maybe we'll I don't know, decorate the set or something so it looks more horrific. Maybe we'll turn the lights off and be in the dark. You'll just be staring at a blank,
we just
black
have-
screen
we
the
have
whole time.
lights. We hold it underneath their face.
Flashlights?
Ah.
That'd be
Are you
sick.
afraid of the dark style?
Yeah.
I like it.
Chip.
Yeah. Review us on iTunes. If you give us less than 4 stars, don't review us.
Oh my god.
Now you can see this on YouTube, GameSpot. Yeah, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time seeing us on video, go back and listen to the last 27 episodes.
And then imagine what you've seen transplanted onto those.
Yeah, now you have faces to put with the voices. Bless you. Cool. So that's all the time we have this week, and we will see you next time.